Where should I start the Loving Parent Guidebook? Hello and welcome to the fourth installment in the Loving Parent Guidebook video series. I'm Kenneth Francis, California licensed marriage and family therapist, and in this video I want to talk about where to start in the Loving Parent Guidebook. In working the Loving Parent Guidebook, I noticed that the chapters did not seem to flow organically. And because of that, I think the best place to start is Appendix D in the very back of the book. You can find Appendix D on page 224. And then after reading Appendix D, I suggest reading and working Chapter 10, followed by Chapter 11. Before we learn to read and write, we first learn our alphabet. And I believe that's the same thing with recovery, and it doesn't matter what kind of recovery you're in, whether it be ACA, Al-Anon, AA. Before we can do the work in recovery, we really need to understand what our emotions are. And I believe that this is the groundwork because most of us need recovery because we are so cut off from our emotions or we've stuffed them down. And in our society, we are trained to be okay and fine when in reality we're probably not. And once we learn the basics of emotions, we also need to see how our thoughts create our emotions and the role they play in how we feel. The important concept at play here is thoughts, feelings, urges, actions. And what this basically means is our thoughts create the feelings and the urges that then push us into action. I want you to think of a car. A car has a steering wheel, and we're kind of the car. We have the ability to steer either towards a positive thought or a negative thought. Unfortunately, many of us, either by the way that we were raised by our parents or by society in general, tend to steer more towards the negative thought. Now, if we drive down the negative path, we're towing a trailer that has our feelings behind it. We think something negative, our feelings in turn are going to be negative. And feelings serve a purpose. They push us into action. If you are crossing the street and you see a bus coming towards you and you have the thought that that bus is going to kill you, that's going to give you the emotion of panic, and hopefully it's going to push you to quickly jump out of the way of the bus. Now, sometimes this happens so quickly that you don't even acknowledge the thought, but the thought is there. And the thought is there as an underlying assumption, but it's still there. The important thing here is when we start to feel ourselves being flooded with emotions, to stop and to ask ourselves what we are thinking. Because oftentimes the negative thought leading to the emotion isn't accurate. We see it through a filter. And these are the distortions that are listed in Chapter 11. We might be exaggerating and catastrophizing our thoughts. We might be personalizing them. We might be basing them on our belief system of shoulds. But by going through these filters, the thoughts get jumbled up, we take that negative path, and our negative emotions follow. Take a moment and ask yourself, how do you feel about working a guidebook and working this journey? Get in touch with the positive and the negative feelings. And oftentimes the negative feelings that you might have are thoughts of this is going to be overwhelming, this is going to be difficult, I'm not going to make it. These are good examples of how our thoughts interact with our feelings. Let's look at what distorted thinking sounds like. I can't believe they did this. They should know better. People are going to read this and get confused and then get discouraged and drop out of recovery. And I'm sure there's somebody that knew this would irritate me and did this just on purpose to bug me. Now let's break this down to the individual distortions. The first one, blame. I can't believe they did this. The next one is shoulds. They should know better. Here is catastrophic thinking. People are going to read this and get confused and then get discouraged and drop out of recovery. And the last one, personalizing mind reading. And I'm sure there's somebody that knew this would irritate me and did this just on purpose to bug me. Did you just judge me for the Hawaiian shirt that I was wearing? Maybe, maybe not. The Loving Parent Guidebook is still under review by the World Service Organization of ACA. In the future, the chapters might be in a different order, but for now, this is where I encourage people to start. Start with Appendix D on page 224, learning about feelings. It's a great feeling list, and then move on to Chapter 10, followed by Chapter 11. It just makes more sense to start here when chapters 1 through 9 talk about feelings, ask you to define your feelings, and also discuss the concept of distorted thinking without yet explaining it. I'm hoping that following this guidance will give you an easier journey working the Loving Parent Guidebook. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section for the video. And stay tuned for the next video, which is going to be Who is Missing from the Loving Parent Guidebook. I'm Ken Francis, and as always, thank you for watching.